Another thing that we have to know for Chapter 2 is the whole concept of significant figures. Significant figures is pretty much what it sounds like. How many figures are significant to the answer? There are two rules that govern significant figures. We'll cover the first one right here. First one is the multiplication and the dividing rule. With this, we are limited by the least number of sig figs, also known as significant figures. In order to understand what I mean by this, I'll have to show you an example. So, let's say that I have a rug, and this rug has a width of 5.2 meters and a length of 6.75 meters. Now, let's say I was to solve for the area. It would be width times length equals area. In this case, we will open up the calculator and solve. So, 5.2 times 6.75 equals 35.1. So, our answer is 35.1 meters. But now, we have to take significant figures into account. We are limited by the least number of significant figures. So let us count how many significant figures we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, and here we have 1, 2. The least is 2. So we'll have to limit this to 2. So let's look, we have 2 here, and the next number is 0.1. So we know we won't be rounding. This makes our final answer to be 35 meters. So this would be our answer according to significant figures. Now, there's also another rule. This one is regarding addition and subtraction. So, with addition and subtraction, we are limited by the least number of decimal places. This is different than the multiplication and decimal rule. So, let's give an example. We have a length of 12.511 grams. Let's say this is a gold bar. And then we have a very small gold bar, which is that number there. We also have one more gold bar to add. And this one is pretty small as well, 2.12 grams. Now, if we open up the calculator and add these all together, oops, let me restart that, 12.511 plus 1.0005 plus 2.12, we will get the answer of 15.0 6315. 6315. So this would be our answer, but now we have to take significant figures into account. According to the addition and subtraction rule, you are limited by the least number of decimal places. Here we have 1, 2, 3. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we have 1, 2. This is our least amount. Therefore, we must limit this to the same amount. Since we would be cutting it off at this point, we look at this number, it's 1. We will not be rounding. So we can just cross all this out, and our answer would just be 15.63 grams. There are also other rules for significant figures. Let's say that we are taking scientific notation into account. Let's say we have 3.75 to 10 to the 5th. Now, the rule here is this does not count in significant figures. So we can just completely ignore this when calculating significant figures. What really matters is this part over here. We have 1, 2, 3 significant figures here. This part is not taken into account at all. Exact numbers and constants do not have significant figures applied to them. Also, trailing zeros after the decimal count for significant figures. Trapped zeros count as a number significant to a calculation. I'm going to be brutally honest. I do not really understand what that means. If you understand it, congrats. Now, there's one other thing that is very important to significant figures, and that is the whole concept of rounding. You only round once when taking significant figures into account. Let's say that we had a number of 15.2555, and we are supposed to put this to 3 significant figures. We will just round here. It's a 5, so the answer would be 15.3. Now, let's say we did something a little different with this. We have 15.2555, and we're supposed to round it to 4 significant figures. Because we have this number here, we will round this to 6. 15.26. But does that mean that we will be rounding this number too? The answer is no. We will only round at the cutoff point with these two numbers. This is a no-no. It will not be 15.3 because that would only be 3 significant figures, and that is not what we were looking for. We were looking for 4. So in other words, remember to only round once. You will not be rounding twice.